Hey guys, it's Sugar, and I'm here with my husband Jeff.
Hello.
And we just finished watching the kind of wrap up for the Ancient Magus Bride, so we wanted to talk about that. Just kind of a aforementioned spoiler. We won't get into everything, but there might be some key moments explained or talked about.
Characters just discussed and kind of where they're sitting, heading into presumably a second season, I would think.
Yeah. Um, I would say neither of us have read the manga, so it'd be quite the assumption to not assume that we weren't getting a second season. It did really well. People really loved it. It was unique. It was different. I really want a second season. I think there's enough material for a second season. I'd have to confirm that, but I'm certain there would be.
I mean, even if there was there's just so many characters they could introduce. Never mind just the characters that we have already. We do have some stories that have been completed. It seems to suggest kind of the major villain of the first season is now resting. I guess would be the best way to describe it. That would be Cartaphilus is quelled for apparently a few decades. So, but just because we've got that one villain down doesn't mean that in this absolutely huge world of magic and monsters and all sorts of things that something else couldn't come along either. So excited about that.
We both know that there'll be another villain. There has to be to push the plot forward. I'm assuming Ash and I will still be a problem, so...
Yeah, what I think part of what I really loved about the series as a whole is just that they were okay with making things be mysterious and magical. And that's great in the sense of Chise only had some tertiary sort of understanding of this world. She only knew kind of some of the creatures that were involved and that they were kind of scary and weird and what her parents had told her about them. But beyond that, a lot of things are kind of left in the dark. We still don't know exactly what the nature of Elias, what exactly his story is. So, I mean, we could move forward with that plot. It seems like some of the characters in the universe, they call him a child despite him, being kind of monstrous and, terrifyingly powerful in some ways. But knowing a little bit more about him would be nice. Just getting involved with more kind of mythology, I guess you could call it. I really like the fact that they kind of blend different mythologies. There's lots of Celtic inspiration and there's some Japanese inspiration. They kind of meld everything together, which I feel a lot of the times with magical based anime we don't get anymore. So I was quite happy just with how everything sort of wrapped up in the first season, which left it really wide open for whatever they wanted to do. You could go and meet up again with the witches' coven, or you could go and meet up with some problems that other people in the city are having. It's wide open for all sorts of different things that could happen down the road.
Yeah, I think as far as I understand, and I could be wrong, it's kind of like the manga. I think it has 43 chapters, and I think we've kind of reached that with this season. It took care of what's written, but it's not marked as ended. Mm-hmm. Like, it started in 2013, but it doesn't mean that it's done. But that's kind of, I think, where I'd met up with the material, so to speak. So who knows? It could be a couple years before we get the next bunch, but who knows if they take liberties as well to do what they like. But yeah,
They could pull a Hunter x Hunter and you just finish what you've got done and then you wait,
Then wait a few years, redo it, and then...
I don't think they'd ever redo it. I just mean,
no.
You could wait a couple of years until you get your second season or whatever they want to call it, their fifth core, or I don't know how they want to...
Well, you have seasons and then cores. Like, for example, this was one season that rolled into this one. It's still one season, but it just rolled into a new season, so it's a core. But anywho, for those of you who aren't familiar with lovely anime terminology, there's seasons and cores. But anyways, so it was a really enjoyable 2 cores that we got, 1 season. I know a lot of people ask me to explain what it's about. And of course, the most relatable thing is I want to say Harry Potter, but then a part of me is like, well, then I would just say Little Witch Academia because those are more alike. There's nothing really like Ancient Magus Bride when it comes to anime from my perspective. It's very fantastical, yet at the same time it's very honest about what magic is and the choices you make and the repercussions of magic, and
that's what I love about it. When it comes to magic in anime, it seems a lot of times like part of the reason that Madoka Magica kind of hit on a certain level was because of how dark and how it's a deconstruction, so it kind of took the ideas and went crazy with them. But not a lot of people were really kind of surprised by its content because of how dark it ended up getting and how oh man, magic could actually be really terrifying if we wanted it to be. We tend to see it as escapism and it's like Harry Potter. It would be great to be magical. Having a magical world would be fantastic. We would be these great mythical beings. Or, they go the other route of Lord of the Rings, which created some of the fantasy tropes as well. And that is, it's kind of dark as well, but it's kind of grounded more in reality. So there isn't as much magic. Heck, even Gandalf didn't use a whole lot of magic through Lord of the Rings. But this one just kind of, it simultaneously showed how amazing magic could be and then how terrifying it could all be. I mean, Cartaphilus, as an example, you sort of understand why he's doing what he's doing. They do a very good job of explaining it. And literally, he was just a kid who wanted to do some good for somebody, and it totally blew up in his face, and now he's this... Basically, he has to live this horrifying existence forever.
Yeah.
Because that's something magic can just do. It's terrifying to think that, I just want to do something nice for someone. Oh, I'm cursed forever.
And one thing I know, initially that I didn't like, but at the same token, I'm I can't say I didn't like it because that's what I always bitch about, is I'm well, I wish I understood why this is happening. I wish I understood this or what their motives are or whatever. But then I also have to realize that we're in the same position as Chisei and that we don't know a lot of this stuff. By the end, I was well, what is Ashinai's, idea of what's going on, what's his main objective, and of course her we don't know, and that's fair to not know, but we've been trained in such a way to be I want answers now. I feel like I deserve to know, sort of thing. And it's kind of, and I've always bitched about that, where it's well, if they didn't just feed it to you with with plot devices, rah 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 rah. But so now we finally get it, and it's such an uncomfortable feeling, so to speak, because we're not used to it. But I appreciate it because they stay in that perspective of Chisei. We know what she knows. There are the odd conversations we get a hand on, but really later on, the same discussion happens with Chisei, so it's not we're cheating by knowing something that she doesn't. So that's appreciative.
And I was going to say, even Elias, or Elias, I'm going to say Elias because that's how I would pronounce it as a native English speaker. He doesn't even know what he is. Anybody who has kind of an inkling, Elias. He doesn't know what he is. He just knows
it's not clear. He just knows that how he kind of remembers things, but it doesn't say that he doesn't
eating human flesh.
Well, he used to eat people.
But nobody has told us at all what exactly he is. We've got an idea of
Well, we've been given an idea that he's kind of a mutt in the sense that he's part fairy, part monster, part whatever.
Yeah, but we don't know. For example, we don't know if he was some sort of magical experiment that went wrong. If he's just the magical world throwing something out because it's okay, whoa, this.
I don't think it was an experiment. It's never hinted at that, but it could. And there's a bunch of. Ever since I've started reading Made in Abyss, my whole mind's you never know anymore. I don't know. Anything terrible could have happened, but no, I think it's just something of. I feel in a sense, I almost get the feeling that it's kind of like Full Metal Alchemist, where it's something happened, and then he tried to do something or make an agreement melded with something else. And that's why everyone kind of calls him a mutt, because he was meant to be something, but then kind of compromised to be something else. and then something happened to him where he doesn't remember, and then it just kind of started wandering around. But who knows? It could literally be anything.
And I would be okay if the series didn't even really answer it. If it's just like, he's Elias. That's just who he is.
Yeah.
That's what he is. He's a product of a magical world that isn't predictable. There isn't a way to make things kind of just work out. Now, in one sense, I can hear some people already saying, well, if there aren't, defined rules and whatnot, can they just have anything happen? And yes, they could.
Theoretically, it's magic. Anything can happen. Like we saw in the last episode where it's like somebody could just get basically run through and be like, well, things happened.
You're okay.
It's a MacGuffin. Like, it'll be fine. It's a magical world, which means that you can write yourself out of a lot of problems. But I don't think it's going to abuse that. It's just the fact that what it is.
They haven't so far. Like, everything has felt like, well, that makes sense for this world.
Well, that's the thing. Things were explained, like, in the end where someone should have died. You're like, well, they explained a couple episodes ago why they wouldn't. So you get that.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's... Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. It really... if you've seen anything like we've talked about in prior videos in our top 10s, Gigax put out a video about it as well. It's just amazing to look at. It's beautiful. It's very fantastical. It's something where you want to explore it. And I feel like having more seasons would be very beneficial for it. Especially the way it ended. We have, can I say, an expected coupling, which is nice. And it's a nice ending. And it kind of gives an idea that she's going to continue doing magic. I shouldn't say magic, but like using her magic abilities to move forward. And yeah.
I think that it puts itself in a position where even if it does have to take a break for a few years, like this ending is okay for that.
And that's the thing. Everyone gets so upset about having a break. And like sometimes the seasons need a break. Sometimes there needs to be a breather. There needs to be like, there's no reason to force material if it's not there. Like that's just a huge mistake that everyone makes.
That's when we get filler for Naruto.
Well, filler for Naruto. But then there's also, we see the opposite where they wait too long and it kind of hurt them a bit, which is like 7 Deadly Sins. Like, people are still invested now, but I find it's less than when we initially watched it. And I find that kind of hindered them. Then there's... I'm not going to say what I was about to say. And then there's like Attack on Titan that kind of just puts out the same crap. And I know people are going to get mad about that. I get so frustrated with Attack on Titan just because this will be like a one comment thing because this isn't what the video's about. It's just the fact that it just like, I've read a good chunk of the manga. I was like, okay, and a lot of things aren't addressed in the anime. And then I find a lot of the animation and story and just... I'm sure I've mentioned it a million times. If you watch my Everything Wrong With, there's tons of things wrong with it.
It seems that Attack on Titan is an anime of really high moments.
And it's so funny because everybody says the same thing in front of me, which I find is even funnier, which is like, if we're in a group of people and somebody's like, I just want to watch something where I don't have to pay a lot of attention, the first thing everyone says is Attack on Titan, which I think says it all. But I'm not saying you can't like it. There's lots of things I like that shouldn't be given praise, I guess, or just like even like Jeff knows my guilty pleasures are on Host Club. I've watched it a million times. I'm sure somebody would, rag on me for watching it, like, oh, that's not as good as X, Y, and Z, and I know, but I love it. And I know people who just love Attack on Titan, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just have personal things where it's like, there's so many things wrong, it's hard for me to enjoy it. I will watch it, and like the next season, which is going to kill me, I will watch it too. And then I'll make a video about how I hate it. And then I'll hear about how much you hate me. And that's I've come to terms with it. It's like this cycle of me understanding. And I'm like, well, it is what it is now. Anywho, Ancient Magus Bride. I feel like the ending felt a little... I wanted it to be a little more climactic. I don't know if that makes sense, seeing as how what happened. I just feel like... we had kind of set up for like a bigger fight scene. I was anticipating a bigger fight scene, more consequences, but things kind of harmoniously kind of fell into place. And it wasn't disappointing. I was just expecting a big, the way they set up was a big hurrah.
I think that's a fair assessment of it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to show going forward that Chisei, it's not going to be her go-to. Her go-to isn't going to be this huge climactic encounter, because that's just, it doesn't play to her strengths as, let's say, a combatant, as well as, you know, her strengths as a character.
Right.
Her character, for better or for worse, she reminds me a lot of how they wrote Naruto, which is that you and I are going to be able to bond in some way. We're going to be able to see, like, even if we don't agree with each other,
we understand each other.
We're going to understand each other.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I loved about the ending was, you know, she gets kind of called out on her crap, and she's like, well, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, I have done blank. I have done some things that I'm not very proud of right now, but that doesn't give you the right to do the same things or even worse. Like, that doesn't, just because I suck doesn't mean that you get to suck more. That is not, I'm not cool with that. I guess part of me feels a little sad that I feel like Magus's Bride maybe got a tiny bit overlooked, in the sense that maybe that's just me and like
I'd love to hear your reasoning.
the crowd that I roll with, where maybe they're just not into magical type stuff. But it feels like we had so many amazing hitters towards the end of last year, where Magus's Bride, despite it being, like, I think you and I both said, well, we'd give it a 9 out of 10. Like, it's excellent. And being excellent just didn't cut it for last year.
It's not that it didn't cut it. I think it just, a lot of other things were prominent. And it's like I was saying the other day, it kind of reminds me now of, like, we were watching it the other night, The Shape of Water. I feel like this is one of those things where it takes a specific crowd to get it. Because when you see the poster, you're like, oh, a girl loves a bull skull. Like, the simple
bull skull monster.
No, but seriously,
Magus.
like some sort of creature, and a lot of people aren't on board with that. And, like,
now, to be fair, anime has got some weird
I know,
stuff
I'm not
going
saying,
on in general.
but I mean, like, no one wants to say it, but everyone does judge a book by its cover. Even the other day, I'm going to call you out on it, because I'm going to bug you about it. So it was exactly the other day, I was literally, I was like, I'm talking about me being a spaz. I was reading something, and I don't remember what it was. And then Jeff points to She and Her Cat, Everything Flows, the movie poster. He's like, that looks like garbage. And I was like, how dare you call out that?
Didn't say it looked like garbage.
Fine, you said another swear word.
No, I just said, wow, doesn't basically, I was like, well, doesn't that look great? And then you were like, actually, it is really good.
Actually, it is really good. It's very sweet.
I'm very anti-cat unless it's Chi, because Chi is adorable.
But that's the thing, though. Everyone judges a book by its cover. When I first saw it, I heard the hype, but without hearing the hype, when I looked at the poster, I'm like, I don't know how good this will be, honestly. Like, it seems odd. Like, honestly, it wasn't like something where I was like, this is definitely up my alley. Like, it gave very little, like, when it was kind of had its, like, mini trailer in the beginning. It was, like, the same as their opener. It just gave you a bunch of flashing scenes, and really, for most people, that isn't enough. You know, I feel like it did get the recognition it deserved, because it was obviously in the award ceremony for Crunchyroll, and I feel like a lot of, like, people who are really into anime watched it. It's just kind of the outliers, the people who are, like, casual watchers, or, you know, what have you. Or just people that aren't into that, like, either magic or just the appearance of it. Because, like I said, when I first saw the movie poster, it wasn't even for the season yet. It was for the OVA. And I was like, I don't know what this will be. Like, I don't even know if I'll like it.
That was a me pick, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Like, let's watch this.
Well, I was like, I don't know, because that was you. You came to me like, we should watch this. I was like, I have it on my list, but I don't know if we should watch it, because I was like, don't know a lot about it. I don't know a lot about, like I said, I quickly,
and then I think I just pressed play.
No, and I was like, I quickly, like, flipped through, like, the manga, and I said, okay, I like the artwork, let's give it a go. And we watched the OVA. I fell in love with the OVA instantly. Like, I was obsessed with it, and I was like, woo, season, let's go. But
it gave some like Natsume vibes.
Yeah, definitely.
In a lot of ways.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it worked with me initially, was the fact that, again, it gave me Natsume vibes, where it was, like, very, it's not even the pleasant part, because, like, Natsume's Book of Friends, there are some dark parts, but, like, the fact that she can see things other people don't, and then having allies and understanding all these things, and kind of being rejected by others, and it's a lot of parallels, actually, And other than obviously outright magic, it's just kind of being able to work with yokai and seeing them and so forth, and having a contract. But anywho, Ancient Magus Bride, I feel like it didn't sell itself well when it first came out, and like Crunchyroll like pushed like clips of it like everywhere you saw like any kind of feed. But again, I don't feel like it justified why you should be watching it other than magic, magic, magic. And it's like, whoa, shit. There's magic flashy, in a lot of things. And like, tell me why I should like it. Like, there's lots of shows I feel like, I'm not even referring to anime now, where it's like, I feel like the trailer didn't give it justice. Like, there's lots of movies like that where I'm like, that was really good. Like, one of Jeff's favorite shows was, what's it called? Oh, the one with the guys that get in trouble with the Red Bull. And it's really funny. Oh my gosh, help me out here. And it has Paul Rudd and...
Oh, yeah.
Guys, I bring this up and neither of us can remember.
I will remember it. Role models.
Role models, yeah. And that was surprisingly funny. And I had heard almost nothing about it. And it was super funny. And this is one of those things where I'm talking to people, and surprisingly, I'm like, you should watch Ancient Magus Bride if you know, like, these things are up your alley. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, I explain it to them, and I show them a picture, like, oh, yeah, I've seen that picture. That I didn't get what that was about. And it's like, it wasn't really clear.
Like, thinking about that, it feels like a lot of anime does that, where they kind of expect the audience to do a lot of the legwork in getting excited. And I mean, and that's I get it. Like, I don't necessarily need them to produce, a movie caliber trailer.
No, but just give an idea of what it is, Like, it just had him and her standing there, and that was kind of it. And then the second one for the season was him picking her up with some, like, ivies going around. I'm like, that still tells me nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, Made in Abyss, fantastic. I don't recall really seeing...
Made in Abyss, I remember the poster was like them, one of the kids was walking, the other one was kind of like swinging down. I think it was Red who was swinging, and that was it. And then everyone I know who I spoke to about it was like, isn't that the one where kids are like hiking? And I'm like, that's not it. That's what it is.
So yeah, maybe that is what it is. It's just... And maybe this is
because I was like, I remember when we first saw, like, I don't remember if it was like a tag or what it was for, but I remember seeing the picture and it's like, will they find love? And I'm like, that guy? Like, it's like, does it come off? Like, I was like, I don't know what to expect.
And then when you hear his Japanese voice and your heart just melts, you're like, oh, yeah.
Well, and the thing is, it's like, oh, will he be good or bad? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, they're really not doing a good job of selling what it is. It's kind of like they give you the feeling that you should be, like, waiting for him to flip, like, at any moment. But that's not really what it's about.
No. It's... Again, I love the fact that it's subtle in a lot of ways, and I think that that's something that is to be commended. Because
what's subtle?
Just Ancient Magus Bride in general. I feel like
you mean like advertising or just the show?
Just the show in general. Okay. I feel like it's very subtle in how it does everything. I feel like a lot of anime is kind of like in your face with like you don't get what this is about, and they bash you over the head with a hammer until it kind of fits, Yeah. And then, whereas I appreciate a little bit more subtlety in the messaging. Like, I couldn't even tell you if there was, like, just thinking through everything, I don't even know if there was necessarily a lot of, like, moral stories in it, or, like, this is good and this is bad. It's more like, this is what's happening in the magical world. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the shades of gray, and the fact that Elias at one point does something which he's just like, I want her to live a better life. I'm going to do this. Yeah. And it's kind of horrifying what he's thinking of doing if you really think about it, but at the same point you're just like, well,
he doesn't, black and white.
He doesn't get it. He's never had the opportunity to get it.
He says right at the beginning, it's like, I don't understand people. I can't empathize. I can try to, but I don't. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I do it based on this is what needs to be done, so I will. Yeah. It's not a matter of I feel bad about it, so I won't.
The character growth that Elias in particular goes through, I think, is really good. But then I love how just when you think, like, oh, well, he gets it. Like, he's just like any other person. It's like, no, remember how at the start we said, like, I don't get it, and I will pretty much do anything I want in order to make something that I want to have happen, because who else is going to fend for me in this world? Like, that's what he does. So, I mean, his character growth is really good. Chise's, I feel like, is really good. Yeah. Like, the secondary characters are awesome in this. Yeah. If it was just Chise and Elias and Ruth, they'd be like, oh, that's kind of neat and cute, but a whole host of secondary characters are also great, and I would love to hear more about them. Mm-hmm. I liked hearing a little bit of the backstory on the mages and kind of how those two ended up getting together. You have, like, the Witches' Coven, which I'm like, oh, cool. So, like, mages and wizards and witches, they all use different aspects of what we consider magic. Yeah. And they all have different views of each other. The mages are kind of looked down upon by both because they're kind of manipulating things. The mages are like, so I'm not as powerful as you are. I have to manipulate things to make it work. What's the problem? And then the witches are all about, like, natural stuff. And then you've got characters that are just purely magical beings, and other ones that are an amalgamation of, like, magic and sorcery and alchemy and just all sorts of things that are happening. And it does a very good job of kind of explaining what the differences are between them, why certain characters view different practices in certain ways. It's so good. And yeah, I guess you're right. It did get a fair amount of recognition at the Anime Awards. I don't know if it won. I can't remember offhand, off the top of my head, if it won anything.
I don't remember.
Where's my list?
It used to be on the tray behind you on the stack of papers. But anywho,
I don't remember 100%.
I remember I thought it should have won for fantasy, but then there was no fantasy category. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, that sucks. And I think it won for... Just give me a second. I'll check really quick.
Maybe it was something with opening or closing or something like that. It got nominated a bunch, though, which is good. I find that just, on the whole, I want it to get more recognition. It's a personal thing on my account, I think. That's all there is to really say about that. You're probably right in the sense that it has gotten a fair amount of recognition. It's rated quite highly on MAL. We both give it, a 9 out of 10. There are a couple of little pacing issues here and there. So, I mean, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I would also say that if you aren't, just as a general thing, if you're not into kind of like high fantasy, lots of kind of throwing in lots of even things that maybe... There were even some... I've played a lot of D&D and I've read a lot of mythology, and there was a bunch of stuff they threw in there where I was like, huh, is that a reference to something, or is this completely original? Like, I'm not 100% sure if this is based off of Celtic. I don't know.
So, best drama went to Ancient Magus Bride.
Oh, okay. Best drama.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good.
Because I remember saying, I was like, it should have been Rakugo. Because that's really the definition of a drama in every way. But
and I mean, so that means that if nothing else, it got enough from fans and their panel that, like, hey, this was great.
I just feel like they wanted to be recognized for something, because even when you look at fantasy, there's like, oh, there's also Made in Abyss, so...
That's fair. I don't know. But, maybe part of my it doesn't get enough recognition goes to the fact that Dragon Ball Super is finishing and a million people are talking about it, even though the quality of it isn't very good.
I think you're confusing, though. I think you're confusing, though, quality versus... Like, Dragon Ball Z... It's been around for, I don't want to say ever, but it's been around since we were young.
Early 90s.
We grew up on it, and it's been said that this is the end. We don't know if it's the end permanently or end for now. We've heard
They've got a movie coming, so it's definitely not the end.
We've heard conflicting things, but let's say it's the end for now. Everyone just kind of wants to know how it's wrapped up. Everyone's obsessed with Dragon Ball, and of course, my other argument is the fact that a lot of people don't want to watch that many episodes of Dragon Ball, they'll just come on and be like, what happened?
I suppose
especially,
true.
We started, we watched the end of it, but the first few episodes we skipped over because it's so bad. It just,
By the way, no bad episodes in Made in Abyss.
No,
there's some.
Made in Abyss.
Sorry, that's true too.
That's true too. But I was
Magus
like, what the
Bride.
fuck? But
yeah, some pacing here and there. Things get kind of slow a little bit here and there, but I think it feels.
I don't think it's so much slow. It's the fact of pacing that it goes too fast at times. Where it's like points where I felt like it could linger and really hit that sad mark. Where they're like, oh, let's just get to the next point, and kind of like I don't think I cried the entire time. Where there are moments that it could have kind of capitalized on those moments.
I was very sad. I don't know if I cried, but I definitely got sad for her when you kind of hear about her entire backstory.
Yeah, that's called empathy.
They did a wonderful job of that.
Yeah,
where I felt like
that's the thing. It's different. So that's empathy, not tears. So
yes,
that's the thing. There's no moment where I cried, where I was like, oh, that sucks. Like there was the one part where you got choked up was when she was getting choked out as a kid.
Yes,
you got choked up over that.
That was,
and I was just like, whoa.
Whereas, if quality is based on how it can make you cry, Made in Abyss is up there. So is
Place
Journey,
Further Than the Universe.
Place Further Than the Universe.
Oh my god, that's made me cry a lot. But anywho, this was, I feel like just some pacing from here and there. I know some people have asked me, is it episodic? There have been a couple episodic episodes, but overall it's pretty straight through with a story.
They go through arcs. I think there's...
Well, cours. There's 2 cours.
Well, there's like 3 or 4 specific kind of arcs where we have a little bit of... There's like a story thread that you complete. And then you move on, and then there's a story thread.
There's the whole thing with Ruth, the whole thing with the dragons, the whole thing with Cartophilis. Yeah. Basically. So anywho, it was really good. I really liked all the characters. Somehow all the women were like huge boobed. I noticed that. I was going to say, other than Chise and the children, other than that, I think every other woman had like huge boobs.
Fantasy?
Fantasy.
No, I'm just saying, fantasy does that.
Yeah, fantasy just happens. This is like, I can't imagine what the guys are going to...
Hey, Elias has a voice that's definitely like, oh my. So even
voice and boobs don't equal. I need equal exchange so I can pull it off.
That's, you know what? That's equivalent exchange.
No, it's not.
What are you going to do more? Are you going to listen to the person that you are hot on, or are you going to be looking at their chest?
I mean, when I noticed, I was like, holy crap, her boobs are huge. It kind of sounds, it's like when I get hit with like a gun where you just hear like that tinnitus. That's what happens when I saw Titania. It's like, whoa, those are huge.
And then our vampire-esque lady, she was well endowed.
I loved her. Well. She was cute.
And that was a story that got me close to tears.
That got me close.
It's, like I said, so many good little...
But I was more,
offshoots.
Yeah, there's a couple episodic moments, but overall it's a pretty straight through story. And if you miss an episode, usually you'll miss something important.
But I mean, it's done now. Just if you haven't watched it yet, you can
the first
watch
season's done. Today was that day.
At least for the Japanese, I believe the dub is a couple of episodes.
It usually lags for most of them. Yeah, depends on the delay. I'm sure it's a couple episodes behind, but. Overall, if you want to watch the sub, go for it. It's done.
I think the sub is probably more worth it. We watched... The dub was okay, but Elias's voice is not as good.
It wasn't even Elias. It was Chise's voice I couldn't handle. Didn't like it.
But it's... Either way, we've got a friend who's watching it dubbed, and she's loving it quite a lot. Mm-hmm. A different friend. I don't know how to explain this friend.
A friend of ours who doesn't commonly watch a lot of anime, but goes on usually my references or Jeff's.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't have that preference of voice actors, but she has a preference of genre, so this fits up her alley.
Yeah, next is going to be Gakuen Babysitters for her.
Yeah, that'll be up her alley.
So I mean, 9 out of 10 from both of us is pretty darn high praise.
Yeah.
Watch it. Give it the support that it deserves, because he just if you have the time, watch the OVA. It's really good and really worthwhile. And the OVA isn't how can I say this? It is kind of a prequel, but at the same token, part of the OVA happens during kind of like
I wouldn't say the middle, but in the middle of the season.
Basically,
of the first core.
Yeah. You see where the OVA fits in because
basically
there's
the
some
OVA,
storytelling that's happening.
Yeah, basically the OVA is a perspective of her telling Elias a story of when she was younger. So it takes place during the middle of the first core, but regarding the past tense of when she was very little.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you know, if you're not 100% sold on it right now, if you watch the OVA and it doesn't, you know,
do it for you.
Doesn't do it for you, the rest of the series probably won't. If you watch it and you're like, hey, this looks pretty good, then jump into the series.
Yeah, basically,
it's wonderful, and it's in anime. I feel like a lot of the time they follow a formula because it works, because it makes you money. I get why there are so many magical girl anime. I get why there's so many
Portals,
derivative shonen anime.
Stuck in a game.
I get why, being stuck in a game is huge right now. I understand why mecha kind of comes and goes and then comes again, because you just need to ride it. This is, I mean, I haven't watched all anime everywhere, so I can't say for sure, but this feels very unique to me. This is an experience I haven't had before in anime or otherwise. Maybe a couple of video games I've played have hit a similar level, but never anything that I've kind of passively been watching, you know, as a viewer, as opposed to something I was playing. So
yeah, so if you get the chance, watch it. It made our top 10 for last year.
It'll probably make our top 10.
Well, it can't because it made it last year.
But I mean, the second half of the...
No.
Come on, why not?
Because it started in that year. That's when it is. You put it in top 10, period. That's just how she rolled.
Maybe we'll talk about the top continuing anime, because hey, they have that as they had that on the Anime Awards because there's literally enough stuff going on that's high.
There's
quality.
always something continuing. As for if it's high quality, that's that's subjective.
Most improved, Black Clover. Ha.
That's another chat. But anyway, won't get into that. Long story short, fantasy, great, beautiful, wondrous, entrancing, draws you in. Can't say enough good things about it, other than a little bit of the pacing, the
great
odd
music too. I don't know if we mentioned it.
The music's really great.
Wonderful.
I play it pretty frequently. The only thing I can say I have a thing with, which isn't a huge thing, it's just the openers. I like openers being dynamic and very... just something different, whereas each opener basically... there's a little animation in the first part of the season, but then today they had a different opener, which was weird. Basically just shots of what's happened or going to happen. And I hate when they do that just because I'm like, it's an opener, put some effort into it. But that's just my opinion.
Watch Sugar's top 10 openers video to see what she likes the most on that. Cause...
I'm sure you can see a trend in my top 10 like favorite intros. It's dynamic, it's fun, it kind of introduces people. Like you can see that. Thinking of the top ones I picked, where it's like Bakano, it riddles off the characters, it gives you a dynamic way of showing you them. Like Jacuzzi, like it shows you with explosions, like that's his thing, that's what they do. And other things. Cowboy Bebop
gets in there.
Well, obviously everyone knows it. It's the color blocks, dynamic, great music, action, again introducing our characters. Full Metal Alchemist, again fun, running, dynamic, introducing characters, like things that I feel like it should do.
Did Death Parade make your top 10? It must have.
Death Parade, yeah. Death Parade, again, dynamic, fun, music, introducing characters. That's all things that you can see in everything that I like for top 10. There's obviously the odd exception that gets through, but almost like guaranteed if you want to impress me. I think the only one that's a little different, which I can say, which I really like the opener, is Aka. Doesn't necessarily introduce the characters per se, but it gives kind of an idea of some of them. I find it's really beautiful music, really great, colors, really great kind of idea and scheme of like portraying what the show's going to be about, like with royalty and mystery and all these other things. It's really fun. But anyways, long story short, hopefully you watch it. If you haven't watched it, get on it. And yeah, just wanted to give you some thoughts. The ending was kind of, it was alright. Wished it was a little more pow, but that's okay. Let us know that...
I felt like it was it was good closure for characters.
Yeah, it was good closure in the sense that things kind of wrapped up nicely for, I think, everybody. In the sense of not it conclusively ending, but kind of being okay until something else comes on. Because they gave a stinger basically saying that there could be a second season, but not enough to be like, it's definite. It's just kind of like, okay, it can continue. But yeah, thanks for joining me, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, of course. We'll probably make a few more of these as series continue to...
Oh, there's some that are completing. I'm in the middle of scripts right now.
Place Further in the Universe and Gakuen Babysitters is going to be done soon. And we could probably talk a little bit about Dragon Ball Super. And,
I'm good.
Maybe that could be like a all-encompassing winter 2018.
It's going to be like Black Clover, where I'm going to go limp and be like, carry me.
Black Clover's been good.
It's been better. Anywho, thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time. Bye.